to scene and no, should be fine. Test, 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 test. Awesome. Channel 2, yep.
I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Hello, hello. Okay, here we go. YouTube.
Should be recording that if you're streaming.
Still can't hear? Yes, sound. My right ear loves this. It's not stereo, I guess. All right, cool. Can we make this stereo? Mono stereo. How about now? Still mono? Mono, mono, mono. Test, 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 test. Sorry, it's got to be your right ear only.
Is it, if you right click the audio, is it saying mono? Properties. Okay.
I think it's here somewhere. This is mono stereo. Ah, here we go.
Okay.
Does that look more like stereo?
There'll be a bit of a delay.
All right. I think that should be it. All right, thank you, everybody. Thank you for your patience. And Ronnie, just give me a thumbs up if it's stereo. Is stereo now? Okay, good. All right, thanks, guys. So I am 3 weeks late in putting my self-introduction into the forum. I did it 10 minutes before this lecture, so if you don't know who I am, I'll give it to you orally. Apologies. So my name is Benjamin. I am the co-lecturer for Yu Chao in this unit. And I was here in week 1 to your first lecture, and I remember Yu Chao asking who of you wants to become a software engineer. Can I get another? Who is planning to become a software engineer? Who wants to be a software engineer? 1, 2. All right, maybe 3. Okay, so we have 3 software engineers. I myself am not a software engineer, and I have never learned software engineering, which is quite fun. My background is in human-computer interaction, so I research how humans use computers, how computers use you, and how algorithms try to take advantage of you, what it's doing to your emotions, to your cognition, and so on. My background, as you can hear, is I'm not Australian, I'm German, so I'm not a native English speaker, and I want to encourage all the non-native English speakers to still speak up. I also make mistakes in English, so you'll see I'll be quite interactive with you throughout. So I usually do about 3,000 to 4,000 steps per lecture by walking into the room with a microphone. So don't be shy, please. Nothing is a problem what you say except you become offensive, and even jokes are allowed, but no offensive jokes, please. If you have any questions for me personally about my background, this is your chance. Any questions? I give you 1. No questions? Can you understand me? Yeah? Am I speaking too fast? Okay, great. All right, cool. So this, as I said already, and as you could hear me mumble into the microphone, the setup is a bit different to what I usually use in my lectures. Therefore, you will see a little bit of struggle moving between multiple screens. So I use a lot of screens. I have my own script, and apologies to the people online. I walk a lot, so you will not see me in the camera that much, but I hope you can hear me continuously. So all the materials you find up here that we'll talk about today are, of course, online. The lecture will be uploaded, the recording later. And I have one of our superstars, course superstars, Rani, today with us, with me. She's helping me because it's the first time I'm teaching at UNSW as well. I am originally, so my background was I was working in Monash in Melbourne and University of Melbourne before. So yeah, Rani's so nice. First of all, she carries this lecture almost single-handedly on her shoulders, and now she's so nice to help me on day one of my lectures. So you remember what you did last week? Were you here last week, Thursday? I hope you did. You walked through all of this, Node.js, Express servers, and started talking about what servers are used for. Any questions? So the one thing I'm very sensitive to is background noise. Sorry, it's not that, it just bothers me, throws me off track. So if you need to discuss something, you're more than welcome to do this outside. If you have questions, raise your voice, raise your arm. You're more than welcome to always interrupt and ask questions, but please don't do too much private chatter in the background. All right, so first question, what do we use servers for? First 20 steps.
To store data.
I need a microphone so that people online.
To store data.
Okay, what else? We store data on servers. Anything else we do with them? Anything else they do to us, for us? Rani, of course.
Take complex calculations away from the client.
Wow, wonderful. So when you access your favorite social media website, whatever, for example, I don't know, TikTok and stuff, there's not only data stored, but it caters data to you. There's a lot of stuff happening in the background that you don't see in your interface that makes these apps so enjoyable and so entertaining and so time consuming. So we use servers correctly to serve data, but also to take complex calculations away from users and take work off the user's shoulder. All right? And servers have become very complex in the recent years. I'm a bit older than you, so not so recent, but in the last couple of years. So originally they used to serve a lot of text-based data, HTML data, and so on. Today we have learned, or last week you already have learned of a new type of information, which we call JSON, right? JSON. Can someone tell me what the difference between JSON and the other JS is? JavaScript. Any ideas? Oh. Do you mind using the mic so we have people online hearing you?
Yeah, JSON is like a web file with only web apps being able to open it and use it.
Okay. Okay. Do you know what JSON means?
JavaScript online.
Ah, close. Object notation. Correct. JavaScript object notation. All right. So JSON is a way of presenting JavaScript objects of notating. So using them as we use JSON as a notation. All right. So another question I have for you guys: can you run a JSON file? Can you use it and run it as a program or as an application? Very easy answer. One-word answer.
No.
Correct. 50%. Correct. You took your chance and you won. Correct. We cannot run JSON files, but we can, of course, run JavaScript files, right? As you guys know. Last thing I would like to ask is the difference between JavaScript and TypeScript. Do you remember? You have already, okay, thank you. I'll use someone else at this point. TypeScript. What's TypeScript? I had you. Any idea? No? Yeah? Great.
Okay. So in TypeScript, the type of the variable is considered at the time of initializing it, but in JavaScript, it is only considered when you use it.
Easier. I want an easier answer. You're smiling. A one sentence answer, one phrase answer.
More precise and
Sorry?
more precise.
Yeah, good. It's richer and it's a superscript to JavaScript. All right, do you know what superscript means?
No.
Super means above. So it does a bit more than JavaScript in very simple terms. It has included reliable or debugging features, or it has included error prevention features. Sorry, I'll change this because the cable sound is driving me crazy. Apologies. All right. Okay, so much about a bit of theory to start with. Next, we're going into our code, and let's hope my setup is working now. All right. Oh my God. This is not working as I want this to work.
Just a quick question.
Yes, sir.
Did you say servers take away like the intensive calculations from the user? Like meaning it takes like takes the intensive calculations from like that phone or something to just calculate in the server itself?
Sorry, say that again.
Like if someone was wanting to use a website, instead of it being like instead of all the like calculations being done on the on their computer, would it just be done on the server and the server just sends what happens at the end?
No, not all of the calculations, but we can take certain certain processing away from the user that's not required. So, for example, if you send a simple request, let me think about an example. So you can see servers also as machines, right, that stand somewhere else physically. We can have virtual servers, we can parts on hard drives, whatever, that we can name as, or we can create instances of servers. But we can also address servers that, for example, server farms that stand somewhere in the far distance. Your bank might have information, your financial information, certain calculations that run on their computers and that are then stored on the server, and so your computer doesn't have to do all this processing. All right? So is that enough? Okay, good. All right, so let's go back to this snippet of code. Do you remember this? You have seen this last week. Yes? Can you guys walk me through? I want to hear a little bit if you remember what these lines mean. Let me try and mark this for you. Let's start with the first line. Anybody who is confident? You remember what express is? What's express? You see that? Import express from express. What's express? No? What's express? You look confident.
I think our lecture didn't mention it in last lecture.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. That's great. So this recall slide is not going to work. Anybody knows already what it is? So what do we do when we import this express thingy? Yes, hold on. I have to run back for the microphone. Yes, say it.
Isn't Express used for running like a server locally on your computer?
Yes, it's a framework that we can import into our code, that we can load, that helps us to create instances of servers on your local computer.
Like localhost 3000. Like
Exactly. Perfect. Then you can probably explain to me the next line.
That's the port.
What is a port? Hold on. So we create an instance that using the Express framework that we call app in this case, and we have on the next line this funny number, port 3003. Can you explain what port means or what a port is?
Is it like an address?
Almost. It's not really an address, almost.
I'm actually not.
You're close. It's related to a location.
It's like a web call. Like we can see the local host /3000 on your thing. So it's like calling the website basically.
Okay? So what does this weird Express server instance do with this 3000 or 3003 or whatever? You can decide the numbers. 80, and so the lower numbers are usually used. Perhaps basically what a port is a door. All right? If you have a computer and you have tons of programs running on your computer, let's say you have 10 programs, right? And certain requests are sent to your computer. Not every program knows what to do with the request. So you ask for a picture library. Not every program on your computer can open your picture library, right? So there are certain ports predefined in these programs that decide, okay, if a request for picture library appears, open this door to whatever, your photo app. That's what it is. So you can decide this when you write your own, when you create your own server instances, when you write your own programs. So you can imagine these as maps towards specific restaurants. In real life, for example, if you see each server as a restaurant, like the word already implies, a server serves you something, so they serve you food. There are different restaurants, and each restaurant has its own address. This is kind of the port that we have here.
Wait, so is port like an address to like a house or something, or is it much more different?
The house is sitting somewhere already. The house is, there's just a door that opens up. So it's on the house is the door.
So it's like the key to the house?
Yes, kind of. Yes. It's the right password you give to open the door.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so the port 3003 in this case would be on the door. It says 3003. You have to come and you give a certain knocking sequence or a certain sequence of door knocks to open it up. And can anybody tell me where we have this sequence? We have to define this, of course, as well. So the server knows that we actually want the door to open. Can you find it? Not yet. That's okay. And we have it. Okay, let me keep going. We have it here. This is the sequence, so to speak, that the server is listening for on door 3003, on port 3003. And what does it remind you of? You know, this backslash or this slash, what's slash up? What does it look like? I guess you all use web browsers, so what does it look like? Yeah, like a part of a URL, right? So in this case, we could use a URL. I'll explain this later throughout the lecture in more detail. We can use a part of a URL to create this very specific knocking sequence on the door, so the server knows, there's someone who wants information from me or something from me. Okay? This part here is probably a bit hard to understand and a bit confusing at this point. Basically what we do here is we add something called middleware. Okay, middleware is something in between two instances of something that want to communicate or understand each other. All right? So we add this middleware that basically tells the program that it should pass any incoming signals for JSON. Kind of, you see the JSON in there? Yeah, Express JSON. So we use the Express framework to tell our program if there's something coming, someone knocks, the door's open, look in the whatever is reached through or comes through the door for JSON elements. Okay? So that's what you have to have in there, otherwise your program's not going to work. And then I'll skip this part. I'll just go to this one, the last bit. You all know what console log means. What does console log do mean? Tell us. Hold on. This might be more than 3,000 steps. It's a big lecture. Any idea what console log does?
Like print.
Okay, where does it print? On paper?
The terminal.
Yeah, thank you. In your console, right? And what does it print in our case? What do we see? Any idea what we will see on our console? So what's in the parenthesis after console log? What does it print? You can read it out.
Listening on port.
Exactly. It's listening. So it tells us, okay, now your program and your server are running, and the server is listening on port, and that is the port that we define up there. So it tells us, okay, we're ready to receive information. That is basically where the server starts working then, and it tells us, I'm ready. I need your information. And now let's go into the middle part. I'll promise you, we do some coding as well, but first we have to walk through these individual elements. What do we see here? Anybody, any idea? So basically what it tells us, I'll explain to you what this get, this weird get means, but it basically is an English word. It means receive. So whenever you receive a URL that ends in a certain way, namely in the way what's up, then this program, this tells the server, please respond with something, and responds with the thing after res dot. So it responds in a JSON format with a value, and what's the value it responds with? Correct, not much. That's all this little thingy does, and we can try this now. I'll show you how we do this. Let's see. Do we get Visual Studio? Yes, and our code is Express JSON. Here we go. That's the same program you just saw, right? I hope you can read it. Yeah. So now a little thing about ports. That might actually help you. So I have the lecture slides. These slides, they are running on a port, as you can see up there, localhost .3000, right? So this is basically, we're running this in the browser, our slides. We're not using Keynote or PowerPoint. The problem is if I now run a program, this program, it already is spoiled, but you see here that we are now we are now defining localhost the port 3001 for this program, and the reason is simply that the 3000 door is already used up for a program. Okay, the 3000 is already occupied by my lecture slides. So even if I want to run this program now, if I want to initiate, let's see, the server instance, okay, save. Let's go into terminal. So you see there's a problem. I first have to terminate the old process, and how do you run TypeScript? Any ideas? Okay, and haven't we had this last week? There's another way, starting with N, node, NPM. You know how? Oh, somehow I thought that was done. All right, so you don't know what NPM is? Oh, okay. So you don't know how to run a TypeScript yet using NPM. All right, how do we do this? That is a surprise. Let me see. Sorry? NPM TS node, yes. And you need, how did you run your old JavaScript files? Or how did you run your own JavaScript little programs? Sorry? Yes. So how did you do it before? And now, because we have TypeScript, we cannot use this really anymore. So we use NPM, which is a node package manager. And then we do run, okay? Because we want to run what we have up there in TypeScript. And then we need a definition of what it is. It's a TypeScript node. And then we put in a file name. What is the file name? Okay. And now it does something and gives me an error. Oh, what's the error? TS node, sorry. That's the problem if I cannot see my screen. Oh, here it works. Where's npm run TS node express JSON? What was my mistake?
TS node is from a previous term. It should be TSX's term.
Are you sure?
If open up the package.json, maybe we can look at
I
this.
did. Oh, okay. I was not ready for this.
That's okay. Use run npm run.
Oh, I'm in the wrong. I know what the problem is. I'm in the wrong folder, of course. Hold on. I need. This is the problem with this setup. Where's my? So I'm in the wrong path. And now it should be working. Yeah, okay. So now we're listening on port 3000. The problem now is I canceled, of course, I terminated my lecture on that port. So now the port 3000 is used by this program. My problem is if I now go back to my lecture slides, as you will see, some of the images will disappear. Hold on. Oh no, it's still working. Oh, maybe I changed the port earlier. Okay, anyway. So where are we? Express, too far, Express. This is not, sorry for this setup, I'll fix this by Thursday. This is not ideal. All right, so we walked through this program, it's now running. So what do we have to do now if we want to address the server? Remember I said there is a little URL lookalike element in there. So what we do is we go to this address where the server, where we initiated the instance of the server. That is in our case. Do you know the address? HTTP local host, right? Because we have the server instance created on our computer. There's nothing out there in the world somewhere. That's just local. You can see already there's a bunch of code spoilers. Is the local host, what's our port 3000 that we decided? And then we need the URL. What was it? What up or something? Do you remember? There it is. What's up? All right, so let's go back. This is disastrous. Here we go. What's up? And now if we send this to our server, we have the right sequence of knocking on the door. The server understands, okay, some person is addressing me and asking me what's up. And now I have to return this JSON format key value pair, right? You remember what a key value pair is? Okay, so we have the value, we have funnily call it key, the value, and we have the value which here is not much. So this is what our program does, a little program. If we go back, let me see. So we walk through this, and then the next step would be to, that we think about, okay, this is one way of asking a server of knocking. There are different ways of changing this knocking sequence and telling a server we want to receive specific information or we want to have some optional information on the server. You don't always want to see everything that's put on there, right? Currently, we just saw everything that's there. And for this, we have different ways of asking servers for information or different ways for servers to receive information. And good Lord. Good grief. All right. This is the important part, again, the middleware. And this is one of these options of receiving information from for a server to receive information. And we call this example a query data, or here we see again we have this little URL, in this case my URL. You see the same elements, right? So we import the Express framework and then create an instance of a server, put the port in this case 3003. You can decide the port number yourself again, as I said. And then the middleware installation app use express.json. So again, Express framework, please pass for JSON file, JSON information, JSON data. And then the important part is this one. So the rest is always the same. So these elements are the same and the end is the same. Again, we're listening. So we're logging in the console where we're listening on which port for the information. What this app now, or what this section now does, it basically defines the rules of what happens when information comes to the server. When we request something from the server, it defines what the server responds, what it gives back to us. And in this case, we're looking for name and age. Okay, you see name and age, name is and age is and so on. So the server will respond to us with a name and with age. But where does it get this information from? What name, what age? It doesn't know, right? So what it waits for is that you send the information in the URL, you query through the, through the URL. And this is something you can see and observe, for example, in your forum. If you want specific information, let's have a look at your forum. That's why it was open here. Hold on, let's go back to the top. So there's a forum. I was searching for UChow to find where I put my introduction. And you see our URL up here. This is a standard URL. So basically, this is one of these addresses or ports, that one of these doors that if you select this URL, if you put it in your browser, you open a specific page, right? You show a specific set of information to the user. And we have different options to interact with this website. So for example, we can select tags here. Let's have a look at, let's just pick general, whatever. And you see then the URL expands. Okay, it becomes longer. And then next, we want to have some optional information. So you see everything that's in general right now. Okay, everything in here, all your messages in general. And when I want, let's say I'm a tutor, I want to see what of these messages in general have already been answered or not answered. I can select a filter. All right, so I can filter certain information out of this big selection of messages. Let's say all this from this information on the server, which of these problems or questions have already been answered, and that's by me selecting solved. And then you see the URL changes here in the end. There should be a little sign, a question mark somewhere. It's hard to see from down there. And you see, yes, there's a question mark. And after the question mark, it says something solved equals yes. What does it say? No, solved equals yes. So that means I want to see all the messages from this database or from this selection of information that have been solved. If I select unsolved, what should happen to the URL at this point? Any idea? So now it says solved equals yes. If I select unsolved, what happens to the URL? Yes. Solved equals no. And the information shown to you is only unsolved messages. Correct? You see it? Solved equals no. Okay. So this is a way of querying a server or querying a database or querying a website for information that is optional. It doesn't have to be shown to you in completion. It is something you select yourself. We call this a filter. And we can do this in your servers as well. So let's have a look at your at this program, input query. So this is what we just did. We wrote a URL, blah, 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 and then added information, filter solved and unsolved, which here, in this case, we simplified this, of course, significantly to name and age. And I'll run this for you as an example. Here we go. So what do we do first? We terminate, oh my God. We terminate, sorry for the doc. Yeah. We terminate our old process. How do we do this? Do you know how to terminate a running process on VS Code? Perfect. Control C, right? And then you see I'm back in my folder, and now we have input query. And now this is the same program we just saw. We want to run this again. How do I, oh my God, how do I run this? npm run. Can we see this? No. On this side, you can see it. So TS node, npm run TS node, and our program is called what? Query, input query, right? Input query dot TS. And now if I run this, something should happen. Again, you see your console log here at the bottom. It's listening on port 3001 for this URL again. So we go into our browser. What's the URL this time? My URL. And so we go into our browser and go to localhost. What's our doc number this time? What did we just see in the console log? 3000. Anybody awake? No. 3001. And then we have my URL. And what does it tell us now? What are we seeing? What's the problem? Why is there no name and no age? Why does it just say undefined? Yes.
We haven't passed those values to the URL.
Perfect. So that's what we do here. We have to pass these values. Do you know how to do it? Remember the filters? So remember the solved and unsolved. How do we write this? How do we pass them through? The very important thing is this. You see it already. The question mark, and then we can select the name. And if we add more information, do we have to add the age, for example? What if I do? What if happens if I only give the name?
Age will be undefined and name will be
Correct. Can I give only age?
Yeah.
Yeah, correct. You see, that was correct. So name is Thomas, and age is undefined. And if we undefined, if you want to add the age information, if you want to pass it through as well, you need an and age equals, and you can give any number, a person that's whatever 23 million years old. So all this works. Okay. So that's a very easy way and very flexible way to query for specific information from the server. That's the forum. We don't need this anymore. So we have talked. So we have now use the query and information in a URL that we pass to a server. The server uses this information, looks for the JSON in it, and sends it back to us in a specific format that we ask for and define here, right? Name, age, name is. You see this here. So that's what the server is trying to do, where the server is helping us. This might look trivial to you now, but it will become handy in a second when we go a bit deeper. There are other ways of sending or passing information to the server, and that way, that method is called params query. So we use a specific parameter that we send in the URL rather than using this question mark. Oops. Rather than using the question mark, we use a specific other notation system or a specific other way of writing this, namely this. Okay? We define in our code snippet here that we're looking for a very specific URL format, namely something where we are giving the name, in this case the name, or you can also define the age, of course, as it is here. So what happens? Can you imagine what would happen if I run this program without putting the name? And I can show you how we do this. So we go back here. That was params. And I have to terminate. And then we run the params program. Oops, sorry. Oh my God, params. .ts. All right, this is now listening on port 3003. So yeah, we go to 3003. What was our URL? 3003. My URL name, right? Yeah. My URL and then name. What happens if I don't type the name is my first question. So basically what happens is this. The query reaches the door, it knocks on the door and asks for some information from the server, but the server doesn't get it. What do you want from me? You are at the right door, you are the right person, the right client, and I want to give you the information, but I don't have everything I need yet to give it to you. And what's missing here in this case is the actual name that has to be put in the URL as a parameter. Let's use this Thomas guy again. So if you put in the name after the URL, you can pick information from this specific entry in the database on your server. So it's of advantage later. We'll see when you have a server with a lot of information, a database with a lot of information stored, and you want to address a specific information from a specific entry. Let's say you have a list of 10,000 names and you want to know something about a Thomas on this list. That's how you do it. Rather than filtering, as we did solved and unsolved, for example, you could filter male and female or over 30, under 30, whatever you want it to be. With this method, you can address a very specific entry on the server. All right? All right, let me show the program. Okay, is this in any way clear, confusing? I know it's chaotic. Sorry for the switch. I'll try to fix this in the break. Switch between screens, but yeah, any questions?
Wait, with the parameter one, how does it know that the name you put in the URL should be the one it should output?
Oh, what it sends back to you, the response?
Yeah, like how does it know? Is it because of that colon name?
Yeah. It's this part of the code. Hold on. That's where it gets the information from. So the request, oh sorry, I'm covering this request params.name. That's where it gets the information from. So this is the request you sent in the URL, and then it takes the element name from the URL and puts it into this constant we created there. Okay, and then it uses it in the response. It can be a bit confusing here. I find it easier to, when you talk about multiple elements, which we'll do later, we'll talk about a library system. This is a bit confusing because all the terms are the same and it's just one entry, one output. So it's better to look at it if you select from a list of multiple entries. We see this in the end. But basically that's where it gets it from. All right. All right, so let's move on. So now you know how to send information to a server, how to send requests using URLs. Do you think that all the information that we send through the internet is sent through URLs, or are there other ways of doing it? Can you imagine that we send or pass some information differently from through a URL? Any idea of, or would you pass your information, your private information in a URL? So for example, you go to your bank website and they ask you for your login PIN. Would you put this in a URL? Probably not. Sorry?
Doesn't HTTPS encrypt your, the stuff you put in the URL? Like the domain name.
Does it encrypt everything in the domain name? Good question.
Doesn't it encrypt everything after? like I heard somewhere that like HTTPS does that for you, like it encrypts.
I'm not sure. I think the URL would still be public, right?
No, the URL is like visible to like when it's traveling, but the actual stuff after the URL.
That's a good question. Sorry, I cannot answer this, but something I can look up. Yeah. All right. So we have to find a different pathway. We have to find a different way of passing this kind of sensitive information or even complex information. Imagine just writing down a business address in a URL. There's an endless way of typing all the information. Do you have a question? Oh, just scratching your head. That's okay. So hiding an ad or putting an address in a URL would be endlessly long, complex. It's open. It's very easy to make mistakes. So we have to find a different way of passing information to the server. And for this, we use an alternative that we call, hold on, let me go back here. Again, this is the part where the parameters are, here we go. The alternative, nope. Oh yeah, that's the alternative. And we call this post. So we're posting something. And we're posting something in that we hide it, or not hide it, but we put it in the body of the program, in the body of the code. And so the information like your password is hidden in this code or is given in this code and then sent through, sent to the server without being shown in the URL. And we can run through an example. It's not so easy to do in, so we need a helper because our programs are not complex enough yet, not multi-layered enough yet for this to be, for us to be able to show this easily. So we use a helper for this, and these helpers are called API clients. Do you know what an API is? You are nodding. What's an API? Do you know what it stands for? Can you explain what it is? Or can you somehow explain what it is?
It's like an interface for software to interact.
Correct. It's something in between two pieces of software that helps them communicate with each other, right? So not everybody can know all the programming languages. So we have APIs that make it easy for us to get predictable outputs when we put in certain inputs they require. Basically a rule book, or imagine it, the real world analogy would be a restaurant menu. If you go to a restaurant, you go to an Italian restaurant, and the API, meaning the menu, would help you to order an item from a list. So you know if I order, I don't know, a penne arrabbiata, I'll get this certain type of noodle with spicy tomato sauce. That's written on the menu. You use this, that's what the API is. You use this information to communicate with the kitchen. Okay, so when we order this, the kitchen knows exactly, okay, this person wants penne with arrabbiata, not pizza with cheese and vegetables. That's basically what an API does for us. It communicates, it helps communication between two pieces of software. And there are clients out there that we use to test our servers, for example, to test certain functions, methods, and so on. And one of these clients we'll use now to send information with this post query through the body, okay? Through the body, and I'll show you this in a second. There's an image of, okay, this is our API client. It's called, sorry, what was it called? That if you want, you should, or actually you should not if you want, but you should install it, the advanced REST client, yes. You should install it on your machines, and if you use CSE machines, you can easily, I think it's pre-installed, and you can address it using running the 1531 ARC. Okay, I have installed this already on my computer, and I'll show you what it can do. It's basically a little laboratorium, a little lab that you can use to test different things, how to update information on your server, how to get or read information off your server, how to create new information or new data entries on your server, and so on. And let's have a look at the code first before we go into the API client. It's called post examples. All right, this is the one. So again, you see the elements. I'll make it a bit bigger this time. The elements repeat itself. We have our Express framework that we import. We have the creation of the instance of the server. We have the port that we define. We have our middleware app.use express JSON. Again, we use the Express framework to look or parse JSON information. And then we have this snippet that defines the rules and what the server does. And this is the snippet. It says app post. Here again, in comparison to the former code that said get, now we use post. And you can see, you may ask, where does it get the information from? Now you see, this time we're looking for information in the body. And again, we're looking for a name here. And I'll show you this in a second. So first we have to run this, of course, because the API client doesn't know what to do without us running this. Again, same as usual. Hold on. We first terminate our old code, and then we run it. Similarly, it was post example.ts. What is our port? 3003. All right. Okay, so now our server is listening on port 3003, and what we do now, because we cannot do this through the browser, okay, the browser can only send GET queries. So in the URL through your browser, you can only send GET queries. You cannot send these POST queries. And for this, we then use our API client. And this is what it looks like. Not for you, but for me. This is what the API client looks like. Okay, so you see already very strikingly, there is this get. And this is, these are the different methods that we can use here to query information from the server or to interact with the information on the server. And in our case, we now want to use post. Okay, it asks for a URL. What URL do we put in here? What do you think? How do we start it? Our server is up and running and listening on a certain port. So we have to tell the API client, where should I look for whatever you want me to do? So we have to define give the API client the port information here, right? So we go to localhost. What was our port? 3003. Yeah, 3003. And our URL is hello. All right. So what happens now? We send this. What's wrong? What's correct here? What do you think happened? Any idea? So we used post as we wanted to, but it says name is undefined. Why? Sorry? Yep. Of course. Any idea what's missing or what could go wrong? Sorry?
Could you hover over the body part?
If you want me to hover over the body part? And now?
Is the red squiggly lines?
Hmm?
The red squiggly lines?
The red squiggly, sorry, I cannot see them. Oh, here, this part. That was a mistake, I don't know. Did I add this just now? That's blindly typing, right? That was correct, good. That wasn't on purpose and it wasn't intentional, but good find. So any idea what is not happening why are we getting this name is undefined in our API client? It's not wrong, but how do we send, what's your idea? If you look at the interface, at this graphical interface, what's the idea? We say we send information through the body, and of course we have to send some information, but currently we're not sending anything, right? We're just knocking on the door, asking for what's the name, and the server tells us, well, the name's undefined. So how do we send this information, this name information? First of all, the URL is correct. Then we go to body here, and then it asks us for some kind of input. And here, again, as I told you already, our programs are not complex enough yet, but basically what we put in here is some code and some information in JSON format that we send to our server, or that we pass. Let's do this. Everything in JSON is in double quotation marks. So that's just a definition of how this is written, of the syntax. So we have name, give me a name, anything. Are we sticking with Thomas? Yes. So if we do this now, we post this kind of information, the name is Thomas, through the body to our server, but something is still missing here, and it's quite easy to, not easy to find, but easy to remember, is that you have to select in what shape and format you want to send. And we, of course, select JSON. That's what we're doing right now. And then we just send this information to the server, and what do we get back? Now it's correct. The name is Thomas. Quite easy. So now you have hidden this information, Thomas, your password might be Thomas, in the body in some code and not in the URL.
Wait, so
Okay.
this is what get post is, right?
Yeah. So, hold on. Yep, I'll come.
Is body the same as the web page?
What does it mean? What do you mean?
What
If
does the
body?
mean? Is it like the web page, or like what does it represent?
What does body represent? How can I explain this? What does body represent? How do you describe body?
It's
Oh.
one of the, like, there's different parts on the request. What is like the middle part?
It's like just
It's not the top of the request, not the header, it's the middle part. I don't know.
There's headers about pre-information, and then there's the actual queries you pass through.
It's basically another set of information with a headline, a body, a header, or a body. Yeah. And what you don't see is what the body actually looks like. We just show the input that we give, right? So that's what this API client does, hidden in the background. I don't know how do you really explain what a body is? I'll talk about headers on Thursday. So I'll add this to my list. I'll add the body to it, and I'll give a little analogy or an example. I brought a pen. All right. I won't forget, promised. Okay. Shall we take a break? Yeah, it's 3 p.m. Let's take a quick break, 5, 6, 7 minutes, catch some fresh air. It's quite warm today. I'll try to fix my setup here. And I think we'll pause this for a second.
away, then there would be nothing in Flaps. You can actually console.log Flaps. If you console.log it, it would have name because you specify one. If you move it away, that would be empty.
All right. Ronnie, are we good on YouTube? Can you have a look? Okay, let's see if we get this better now. Looking better? Okay. All right. Welcome back. Sorry for the delay again. Let's see if we get this better started on Thursday. So I have changed my setup, so now I can see what you guys are seeing, which makes it a bit easier, but it will tie me a bit more because I like walking around, as I said. So let's have a look again. So we're trying to talk to our servers somehow, right? So we used an API client in the last 10 minutes before the break. Again, you can download this client. You should play around with it. These things are very powerful, and they make it easy for you to test if your server is responding correctly, if you send the right input, and so on, and use different methods. As a little to repeat a little bit, so the two methods we looked at so far is get and post, and again we use get, for example, to search for information or to read information or to fetch info off of our server, and again it's like a menu. Again to read information, to search information, to fetch for info on the server. And post is when we send or we're submitting something to the server. So there's nothing yet that we search for. We submit in form. For example, if you fill in a Google form that contains all this info, that would be comparable to a post where you submit a form or you create an action on the server, you create an entry. Again, I hope it will all come together in the end when we look at our library example. But okay. So quick walkthrough. So here again, this is the client that basically, in the light interface, this is the dark interface, is the same. In the client, you can use, again, get queries, post, put, delete, we'll talk about in a second. These down here, patch, you don't have to learn, I think, for this unit in this term. We're focusing on the main four, get, post, put, and delete, and we'll talk about this now in a second. As I already mentioned on the side, here's again a little summary that web browsers can only make GET requests. Okay, so they can only read information or fetch info from the server. But if we want to make POST requests, we have to use something like an API client. Okay, so besides GET and POST, there are other ways of interacting with our server. And these we summarize in the standard methods, we summarize under the phrase or under the term CRUD. Has anybody ever heard of what CRUD is? C-R-U-D? Have you learned about the system development, software development lifecycle? Has anybody heard about this yet? Have you come across CRUD? No? So yes, SDLC you know, and CRUD you don't know. So basically, These are standard methods, and here are these 4. Hold on. If I zoom out, the table should actually look correct. So these are these 4 main or standard methods that we use when we communicate with our server using HTTP. And this is POST, again, as we already looked at or we saw before. This is to create something on the server. We have GET. You saw GET, app.get, and that's to read information. Then PUT we use, the PUT command or the PUT method we use to update information that's already on the server. And of course, delete is to delete something, an entry, delete a part, delete an entry of the server. And these together, that's why we call it CRUD, C-R-U-D. So create, read, update, delete. That's what we expect from you as well in iteration 2, that you know how to use those, how to apply those, and what they do. Okay? A little helper here on this slide. So again, we'll upload these slides later on how you can use them and where you can use them. So again, POST is an operation to create something, and what can we use? We can use rec params that we have already seen, request parameters. You cannot use a request query because that runs in the URL. Sorry, these request queries are usually in the URL, but POST will send through the body, so we use request body here, right? And get to read, we can use these requests and so on. So you can look at this, and the response is always, in our case, what we're talking about are JSON formats. Okay? Again, PUT, you can update or you can replace, for example, an existing entry. If we think about, do you guys still use a library? I guess at this day and time, people don't really go to libraries anymore, but you know about libraries, I guess, like the physical ones, not the software ones. They look a bit like this, but if you think about a library analogy, what would be the POST method or the operation to create something? Think about a library contains a bunch of books. What would POST do to a library? What would we create, or what would happen?
Add more books.
Exactly, you would add a book that doesn't exist yet. What is get? Very easy, right? You go to the library and what do? You read it. You read what's already there, exactly what's put in that example. You shouldn't do that. Yes?
So is a library an array or an hash map?
We'll look at it as an array.
Okay.
Yes, you're not adding a new book. For adding a new book, you would use POST. What do we update? For example, a new edition of a book that was written in 1998. Now you have the 2025 version, so you update this book. It already exists, but you update the entry, right? And then the last one, of course, is what you should never do in a library. You take a book out of it and don't give it back or whatever, dump it in the bin. So okay, this is basically what these methods and operations would do in the case of a library. Do you want to play this with another example? No. But of course, these are not all the HTTP methods to communicate with our server or to ask our server to do stuff for us. There are others. Again, the main ones for you are get, put, post, and delete. But there's patch, for example. There's head, connect, options, and trace. But these go a little bit deeper into software engineering already. You don't need them for this unit. Rani, you correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I know, you don't need them in this unit. All right. So this is so much about HTTP methods. So today we'll focus again on our get, post, and now coming up soon, put and delete. I actually, hold on, before we start this, I have one more example. And this is, now I cannot show you because my setup's not working anymore. But think about, let's talk a little bit more about this post operation. So think about YouTube. You all use YouTube, whatever. You all interact with web content, right? Give me a few, can you come up with a few examples where post would be something that we use to send information to the YouTube server or to request something from the YouTube server. Do you have an example for this? So it's not, maybe I can open YouTube. It makes it even easier. Let's just start here. Some techno concert, I don't know. Sorry? You know something? Let's just play a concert without any music. So if we play a video on YouTube, you see the URL gets longer and longer, but there's this ominous question mark here that we talked about earlier. So this is something, it will be hard to type all this in, right? This whole address to get this video specifically. So what can I do to find this video easier? So how can I tell YouTube I'm really interested in this video? We don't have to watch this. Oh, you want the music? No. So one example is I could like it. I'm not going to do this because then this is liked with our class account, which might mess up the algorithm. But by liking it, or starring it, favoriting it, whatever you want to call it, you basically send a post query to YouTube and say, please remember this for me. You get some response saying, yes, it's saved or it's stored in your whatever liked and favorite videos. That's one example. Why is this important in today's software world? Do you guys use Netflix at home? Or, I don't know, do you use streaming platforms? Whenever you send this kind of information to a company and say, I like a video, I like this kind of video, they learn from you, right? These kind of entries, creating entries in their server that this person with account UNSW1531 likes Carl Cox techno videos, it teaches the company, or it teaches them some information about you. And they use this, of course, to train algorithms. We use this to predict human behavior. We use this to predict what you like. That's more my field of research, doing this. So when you send and create an entry in their server that you like something, that you dislike something, does dislike still exist on YouTube? I know it used to. You can still dislike, yeah? All right. I have stopped doing any interacting in any way, but of course, even watching a video longer than a second already is an entry that they know, you like this more than a second worth of time. So this is an example of sending information to YouTube. Another example would be you write an entry or you write a comment under the video. That's also sending a post query, for example, that it's recorded on their server, that there's this comment from COMP1531 saying, this is a beautiful video, I wish I could have been there, or the opposite. All right? So this is what these post queries can do for us by creating some kind of entry on the server side that tells them that we like something or dislike something, and so on. All right. Let's move on. So we talked a little bit about APIs already. We mentioned API clients, but so far what we have seen is just building blocks of APIs. More importantly, someone has already said they know what an API is. Here is a very official definition. So we call this, again, an application programming interface, and it refers to an interface between pieces of software, different types of software. It stands in the middle, and it translates back and forth, so to speak. And there is this funny sentence, the interface of the service acts as a black box, so we don't really know what's inside. A black box is hidden to our eyes on the outside, and it indicates that for particular endpoints, what does it mean? Particular endpoints. What do you think an endpoint is? Think about a URL, for example. What's an endpoint? If we look at a piece of code that we had, what would be an endpoint here? This, for example, right? So once you've put in a query that the server understands and that it's waiting for, that it's waiting for, then we can expect, so this is what we mean with a given particular input, so in this case a URL that ends in a specific, that has a specific format and information in it, the client, us, we can expect that we get a particular output from the server in this case, or from another software. Think about the restaurant analogy again. When you use a food menu and you order, again, penne arrabbiata, I really love spicy pasta. So if you order penne arrabbiata and they come with a garden salad, you would be disappointed, right? So some communication in between didn't work. That's a problem. An API makes sure that we really get what we want for if we order correctly. So if I don't speak correctly, or if I say garden salad pasta or something, it might be confusing, right? Then I'm using it wrong, and my input is wrong, my endpoint is not correct, and thus the input is not correct, and therefore I don't get the output that I expected. So this is what we use APIs for. The main APIs today is that you will probably also come across are web APIs. And here again are examples how the web APIs work in between you or your representation in form of the browser. You're the client, or your browser is the client, and the server. Can be any server. Can be, I don't know, when you fly home and you, let's say you fly through Singapore, you go to the Singapore Airlines website, so Singapore Airlines server. Okay, first you load the web page by going to www.singaporeairlines.com or whatever the page is. Then the API tells the server on that side, hey, this guy wants to see your page. The page is loaded and sent back. You're looking for some data, so you're requesting some extra data, for example, which flights are available on day so-and-so. All right? The API tells the server, hey, this person is looking for flights on this specific day to this specific city, and then sends it back. And that's how it helps us to communicate with these servers. So rather than us typing all lines of code to get information, we have an API usually. Again, it's a black box, works in the background. You just see a graphical interface. So I have heard that because we're using apps so much, right? Apps on smartphones and tablets, so many people don't even know that there are folder structures and actual hierarchies behind these apps, because everything is very shallow, it appears like. So you click on a graphical icon and then something opens up that doesn't even look like a website anymore. But most of these things are based and use web APIs. Other examples, you check your weather, Google Maps, there are web APIs everywhere that help you. Okay, and as we already said, you can submit form data and the submission is confirmed. For example, you submit a Google form somewhere, the API takes care of telling the server this is what these entries mean, and the server records them in some format that it can work with and tells you back, okay, thank you for submitting your feedback. So at the end of the semester, when you ask for feedback, that's basically what it does. Okay? Too fast? This is just to summarize a little bit what we've talked about. Then we have this special API type or architecture that is called RESTful APIs. It had nothing to do with RESTful being, oh, it's easy to use, I can REST, it doesn't take much effort. RESTful actually stands for Representational State Transfer. If you're interested in this, you can look this up. But basically, what RESTful APIs do, they are APIs built following a specific infrastructure that's easy to use and that uses these standard CRUD methods and helps us to request data from servers using these. Okay, these four methods describe the nature of different API requests, and we walked through them already, so you know what they do. So again, get, read something, put, update something existing, think about the book, post, create something new or create a new action or new entry, and delete is get rid of it. Right? These are the four you have to be able to. When I was a university student, my professor always said, when I come to your house and wake you up at night, you have to be able to tell me what that means. A bit creepy, but that's how the old days were, odd. All right, so again, these four you have to know. And then, hold on, did I forget something? No. Let me see. Okay, before we go on in sending requests to our code, what are we going for? Yes, we're going for our apples and oranges. Yep. And apples. CRUD.json. Yes, this is our summary. This is where we try the get and post method out again. I'll show you a little trick. Okay, I think we're running on port 303 already. Oh, no, we're on 3000. Anyway, doesn't matter. You remember the ports. I can define the doors myself. I can also go to 16. Doesn't really matter. In this case, I just know there's no one. Question? Oh, yes.
Close off a port. Like, how do you end the port? Like process running in the port.
So in VS Code, you just terminate the process, right? With Control C on a Mac.
And it automatically closes.
Yep. Now there's nothing. We can go to this port. What was it before? We were listening on 303. So you can go to localhost 303. There's nothing. Dead.
No, I remember the time I thought like I left and it failed to close that. It just kept being on.
Oh, so if you can use multiple ports in parallel, of course, right? In VS Code, it's quite easy. Hard to find, oddly, but it's quite easy. You can just create a new terminal here, like a tab in a browser, and then you can run a different program using a different port. So that's how I, for example, run the slides and these programs in parallel. Yeah. If you don't know this, you're trapped, right? You're trapped. For example, this is the lecture slides. They are running right now. There's nothing I can do in the terminal except for terminate the process. So this port is in use now, 3000, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, so again, let's have a look at this program. So we do the same again, use our Express framework. We're looking for some kind of information that's passed to the server, in this case a name again, and once the server receives this information, it sends us back this response in JSON that someone thanks someone for bananas, right? We're saying thanks someone for bananas, and then we have another one, the post, where we send, of course, not through the URL, so we cannot hide this information in the URL or put it anywhere. We have to put it, pass it through the body. Here again, it's waiting for a name, and I'll run this for you and show you what this looks like. So we go for CRUD.json. Oh, sorry, I didn't save, so that happens. Now it's listening on port 3001. That's okay. That was apparently open, but because I didn't save, let me save this first. Terminate and show you what it looks again if I rerun it. Now we're on port 3016. So what can I do now? Can I go to my browser and send a name so I can get this funny message that someone's thanking for bananas? Is that possible? Or for oranges? What do you think? Let's try this. We are on localhost 3016. 16. And it was apples. Cannot get apples, so it wasn't apples, it was apple, sorry. So if we do this, it's a simple, the get method again, hi, undefined, so the name is not received by the server doesn't know who to address. So what is missing here, since it is get, again, get is just to read, fetch info, yes please. Is there a limit?
There's a limit.
I don't reach those.
Well, you're surrounded by like system ports where those define.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think you will reach it though. There's like over 1,000. Like, yeah. Even if every student in the course was using it at the same time, you would not reach the limit. So, yeah.
Interesting question. Yeah. All right. So what do we need here? Sorry. To get this message with a name sent back to us, a response including a name. Think about this get. Think about the filters. What's missing in our URL? Yes, you're saying it. Say it. Say it out loud, please. Correct. Very good. That's what we need. Can we use our, hold on. Can we use our post method using orange in the browser? What happens if we do this? What happens now? Cannot get orange. So what do we do if we want to send information to the body using post?
Go for the API.
Correct. We use our API client. And here, can you walk me through how to do it?
Post.
What's our URL?
Post. I think on 16 right now.
Yep.
/orange.
I should do it this way. But it was already given, okay? Everything all right?
Yeah, I think that's
Correct. That's what it is. So again, that was already given. So we have to select our input is in JSON format. Again, JSON requires double. It requires the key value pairs always require the double quotation marks for every entry. Okay? Can we do the first one, the GET request as well in our API client? So this one. Is that possible, do you think?
No.
No?
Yeah.
Yeah? No?
Like, no, you can't do it in the API.
You can do it in the API client because we have these all the methods given to us, right? So if we select get, what was the local host? 316. And what was it? Apple. Good Lord. Hi, undefined. So what's missing? Correct. Hi, Tim. Thanks for sending bananas. So again, you can test all the methods in here. You can test put. We'll do again, as I promised. I'll move there now. And we can use delete as well. So you can test everything here. You don't have to do it in your browser. Your browser is just good for a quick check if you want to run any GET queries. Okay, so read information that's available. Okay. This is something we do later. That's what we're doing Thursday. Now I want to show you something first to make your life a little bit easier. So as you see, whenever I change something in my code, right? For example, I changed the bananas. I can change this to apple. Apple, as it used to be. And if I now go to my API client and run this, nothing happens. It still says bananas. The reason for this is the server there's no change yet. The server doesn't know yet that I changed the code, right? That I changed the rules, how it should respond. So I first have to save it. Now I saved it, Command S, and again, nothing changes. What do I have to do? Why is it not updating whatever I do, whatever query I sent? The response is still the old one. It doesn't tell me Apple yet. What's the problem? Sorry? Yes, you have to rerun it. Why? Very easy answer. Why do we have to rerun this?
Because the old program is still listening.
Exactly. So we terminate this. We run the same thing again. Everything looks the same. We're now on port 16. I sent the same information, and now there's Apple. That's a bit inconvenient if you start writing code and you continuously change your code and you want to check how your server responds and how it reacts. So we have a method to do this, or a helper, and this helper is called NodeMon. It's a package that we can install. I've already installed it. You can use this slide to do it. I'll just show you how to what you have to change and how to use it once it's installed in your computer. Hold on, I hope I'm not missing anything. No, okay. So let's go back to our code. So I terminate this process again. Now I'm using this nodemon to npm run nodemon. Rather than using ts node, now I use this nodemon package to run my TypeScript here. What was the example? CRUD JSON, JSON.ts. Good Lord. Now you see it looks a bit different, so there's a few more lines added, but what's great now, so it's still listening on port 3016. Again, I can show you in our client. I can change the name just as an example, Alex, and send it now. Hi Alex, thanks for sending Apple. It's still the same, but I want to change Apple now to, I don't know, strawberries. Strawberries. Use the one that is hardest to type. Strawberries. And what I do now, I just save, and you will see automatically the server is recreated and restarted with the new rule. I don't have to terminate it. I don't have to call the program to start the server again and to basically create this new program on the server. Nothing you have to do. You just use this nodemon package and it automatically updates. So this is a little helper for you and for us if we work with code that we want to update and that we want to develop. Makes life very easy. All right, and now to conclude today's lecture, I want to go through one larger example to show you. So here's a large piece of code. Let me show you a bit. We don't need the sidebar anymore. And again, we have our standard start. Everything is the same, but then we see we have this let books here. What does let tell us? Again, what is let? Yep. And what do you see in this variable? Sorry?
It's an array of objects.
Yes, we have an array of, here in this case, book titles. We have two entries here. One is ID 1, The Hobbit by J.R. Tolkien, and one is number 2. And then here is all our rules and commands. I'll walk you through it quickly. So we have get, a simple get request to get all information, retrieve all book information. All right. Again, you can do this easily in a browser. Browsers only use get queries. Then there's another get one where we add the parameter to call a specific book in this array. All right. So if we add this parameter following this syntax, we get a specific book information. We'll show this in live. Then we have post as the third one. We can create a new book entry on the server, a new book entry in the array. 4, we can update a book information. And 5, we can remove a book. And what's the most logical thing to do? We go through step by step now. All right, let's run this first. So we have the other program still running. So we terminate this and we go for, what do we call, what's his name? Booklib.ts. We're on port 3001. Let's start with get one, the first one, retrieve information from all books. Who tells me, can someone tell me how to do this, please? How do I get all the information from all the books using a get query from my database or from my array? Tiny database from the server. There are 2 ways of doing this. 2 ways we learned today. Yep. Are we using our browser? For example, 3001/books. There it is. The Hobbit. What's the other option? What's the alternative? Exactly. We can also use our API client for this. I'll start a new one here. Books. We use get, of course, because we want to read the information of the server. And down here is the list, slightly differently formatted than in the browser, but the same information. OK, now I want a specific book. Now I want to look at a specific book. For this, we need to use our params query that we had earlier. Again, remember, there's this double dot or colon, and it asks for an ID. What are the IDs of our books? 1 and 2. So how do I get the information for 1984? What do I do either in my browser? It's a get query, or in my client. Anybody? I want the information for 1984.
Question mark and then ID equals
Question mark would, okay, let's try this. Question mark ID equals 2. Nothing happens. Why is that?
You have to do it in the API.
You want to use the same URL
Yes.
in the API client? Okay, let's have a look. Same. We get both information. Why? What's the problem? If we look at the code.
You needed the books /2.
Sorry?
Book/2.
Book/2. Book/2. Sorry, couldn't hear that well. That's correct, because we're asking for a parameter. We're not asking for an optional filter kind of information, right? So we're looking for a very specific entry in our array. So we go, rather than using question mark ID equals 2, we're just using 2. And then we get the information. That's the parameter or the params query. Same here. If we do it here, that's the only information you get. All right, let's move on. I see that we don't have that much time left. So how do we create a new book entry? We use post and we send the information. Which information do we need? Title, author, year, correct. And we send that how? Exactly. Now we cannot use the browser anymore. The browser, again, can only do get queries, okay? So we use, how do we do it? Okay, correct your URL. And now, correct, we want to send through the body. What's going on here? Raw input. And then we need, what was it? What title? Tell me a book title. What's your favorite book? Handmaid's Tale. If it's wrong, we can correct it. Next one was author. Who is the author? Sorry? You're making this harder for me. Spell it. W-O-U-D. O-D. All right, and the year? I'll guess a year. 1, 2, 3, 1234. All right. And of course, last thing, don't forget, we're sending this in JSON format, and now we send this to our website, to our server, sorry. Did we get any error messages? No, looks good. How can we check if it's in there? Perfect. We can get our books with the get command. So we have The Hobbit, surprise, surprise, surprise. Yes, Handmaid's Tale, Atwood. That's how it worked. We posted and created a new entry in that array for the book. Now we want to update this because.
The two types are inconsistent for year.
Sorry?
The types for the years are inconsistent.
Oh, true. Because I use it as a string, I guess.
This is what happens when you don't use password.
Let's see. I will work with this. All right. Because of time. Sorry, time is very short. So let's say we made a mistake with the author. It's a different author. How do we update the author information? What is the update operation that we use? Think about CRUD. Correct. We use put. We send the information through the body, JSON. you can see this in the code, of course. Hold on. We go down to put. Again, it requests information to the body. I'm almost done. And what do we want to update? Let's do name. Oh, sorry, that was title. Handmaid's Tale, you have to give all the information. So whatever I do now, it will update even if I mistype it. Author, Ben would be great. I'd written a book. And the year, even more. All right, and if I send this now through the body in JSON form, there's a mistake. Where did I make a mistake? Title, author. Oh, sorry, yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you, very good. Yeah, so you see now it's updated, and now the last thing we want to do, of course, we want to get rid of this because that's not a book, and I would never be able to write a book. So we delete it, and this one is very simple. You just keep your URL, then this API client does a little bit of calculation work, and that should be it. Now if we go for our get and look at all our entries, it should be gone. Oops. Sorry. Panic. We can do it here actually. Yep, it's gone again. And this is basically all the CRUD methods or operation, all the CRUD methods run in one program that is also available to you to play around with. Okay, 1 minute to go. Thank you.